Hello and welcome, my friends, to the Flying Kick. I am Savino, and today I have the pleasure to have here with me Ash Nicholls from Art of Play Games, the director of the upcoming Phantom game based on the character of the same name created by Lee Falk. I forgot his name.
Yeah, Lee Falk.
Lee
That's right.
Falk in 1936.
Yeah,
Pretty,
36.
pretty old character. How are you, man? Welcome to the channel.
I'm getting there, mate. It's been a few weeks of being sick, but I'm pulling myself together.
Oh, that's great, man. That's great. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you.
So, tell us about a little bit about you, your story with games, your background with game production, the story of Art of Play Games.
Sure. So, how far do you want to go back? I can go back to 1980 if you like.
Oh,
Um, I grew up in regional Australia. Uh, I would call kind of lower middle class. Let's just say poor family. Um, so, video games weren't kind of on my radar in like early days, even though the Nintendo and stuff was sort of coming out. Wasn't until I had a play date with a little boy in grade prep, I think, or grade one in primary school, and he had a Nintendo entertainment system, and I saw it and I played Mario for the first time, and my brain just went. Then it just became a mission, really. You know, you try and play as many games as you can. You talk about games all the time. I eventually begged my parents to get me an Atari because I knew that that's what they could kind of afford. Um, and I remember being horrified at the quality of the games even back then, especially compared to Nintendo's. Like it
yeah,
was
yeah.
there was a drop that was infinite. It seemed at the time. Um, and yeah, grew up, like trading consoles and games and things. We were kind of limited in what we could get based on where we were. So there's like a local Blockbuster and a couple of other video stores. But then it like a couple of arcades popped up, and that's when I sort of started to see things like Final Fight and Street Fighter 2
Oh,
and Mortal Kombat. Like Mortal Kombat was released when I was like 14 years old. It's like the perfect time for Mortal Kombat to be in your life. Um, and so yeah, my family, we had most of the consoles, had the Super Nintendo, had the Nintendo 64, and then of course the Dreamcast and everything when I went into university. So games have been like pretty close to everything I've done since I was a kid. Um, and yeah, so when I finished high school, there was um, kind of like the web presence was just starting to build up. This is sort of like the late 90s. And so I went and did like a multimedia degree and came out of it sort of not really happy with what I'd learned and wanting to do more, basically more interactive stuff. But couldn't get a job anywhere in Australia because there wasn't really that much of an industry at that point for video games. So I went into kids publishing and started designing magazine pages for kids magazines. So I got to know everyone at Hasbro and Mattel and
that's great.
um, through connections there. And I just said, hey, instead of just doing magazine pages, why don't you try building a game and we can host it on a dedicated server and all that sort of stuff? And they said, oh, that's a great idea. So we ended up doing, I went back to the publisher and I said, hey, you can make more money if you start doing video games as well as print magazines. And they kind of didn't really get it. They were kind of old school. Um, so I actually put forward an idea to Hasbro to do a game for the Clone Wars,
Oh,
which was just coming out for its first episode of season one. So I was like, this is way back in 2007, 2008. And I thought I was just going to be dealing with Hasbro because that's just who I was used to dealing with. But they said, yeah, let's do a game. And I had to submit like an idea for the game and everything. And about a week later, I got an email back from Lucasfilm, or LucasArts at the time. So yeah, we love the idea. Would you like to be involved in doing more of this kind of content? And I said yes. And
sure.
so then yeah, so then we started. I started doing stuff for the Clone Wars. We did multiple games for Star Wars, and at that point in time, Hasbro and LucasArts were kind of, or Lucasfilm in general, were doing a lot of stuff together. So all the games I was doing for Hasbro were going on to StarWars.com and also onto Hasbro.com at the same time. So, they were getting lots of bang for their buck, basically. And then, so yeah, we did lots more games through there. And that's when I kind of realized, okay, I need to focus on this 100%. I need to ditch the children's publishing side of things. I've got my inroad. I need to make things work. And by this stage, it was like 2012. And we picked up a couple of games for Nickelodeon.
Oh, nice.
And just for some of their lesser brands, but they wanted to sort of try and build them up with some games. And we didn't know at the time, but those games had outperformed several other bigger budgeted games that were sent to them from New York. So we were just working with Nickelodeon Australia. So it's just a small team out of Sydney. And so they said, well, would you like to make more? And we said, yeah, we'd love to make more. And they said, well, we'll give you a contract for 6 games. And then I flew to New York to meet with the Hasbro's studio in New York, as well as Nickelodeon New York, and walked out of those meetings with a whole bunch of games under my belt, like budgets and everything like that. And I thought, wow, okay, this is actually going to be something now. Because up until that point, I had a few staff members and we were making enough money to pay the bills and my mortgage and things. But in no way was it like super busy in Australia. And it wasn't until we started getting international work that things really kicked off. So we launched with Nickelodeon Australia with a 6-game contract in 2012, and we finished with Nickelodeon in 2020 after doing 70-something games. So that was kind of our big, almost decade-long stint in gaming. And it wasn't really until the pandemic hit and Nickelodeon had merged with CBS and they had cancelled all of their games production other than licensed titles, that I had to get back onto my toes and kind of pivot the company in a different direction, which is when I reached out to King Feature Syndicate and a couple of other clients to actually start producing larger games and purchasing licenses and becoming more of a publisher ourselves rather than a studio for hire. So it's been a long journey. It wasn't just stepping into this from the abyss. It was basically step by step over time. But, we had a good 10-year run of being a studio for hire where Nickelodeon was so happy with our games that they would talk to Sony, and Sony Animation would email us and we would do games for Spider-Man and for Hotel Transylvania. And then Paramount Pictures, because they were part of the same family, would reach out to us about doing stuff for the live-action Ninja Turtles movies that were coming out at the time. So we were able to get a huge folio of games under our belt without having to do any marketing or promotion or anything. And just everything sort of snowballed for us. And then just like that, it was over. And the pandemic had hit and I just had my son was just born. And I realized, we need to do something drastic here.
I'm in trouble.
So, yeah, I put together a 15-page proposal for the Phantom and a bunch of other games I sent out as well. And it was just really fortunate. It was really good timing that King Features were looking at doing some more content with the Phantom, and a combination of myself and my knowledge of the Phantom in conjunction with how many games we'd done in the past and all of our clients and everything, they felt it was a good fit. So
for sure,
it wasn't an overnight decision. We had several months of back and forth discussions on getting the game across the line. But yeah, it sort of started to come together, and so here we are now. We're 5 months into 4.5 months into production, and probably got another 12 months ahead of us before release.
And that's a quite story you guys have, because you not only have experience producing games, but handling franchises. Right? You guys are.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surreal experience sitting on the 34th floor of the Viacom building in Times Square, New York, listening, basically being handed the keys to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob SquarePants, Power Rangers, Transformers. Oh, that's with Hasbro, but you know what I mean. And just trying to take stock of where I'd come from and the insanity of all of that. You know, looking down on the lights of Times Square, and
Oh, I can
you know,
imagine.
it was very intoxicating. And it's you know, even though the games we're producing were relatively low budget, you know, the expectations were really high, and delivery timelines were quite short. So that you know, we had to kind of have a good team together to get these games made, and everything had to sort of flow really nicely. And to keep that up for 10 years as well, or 8 years, is something else as well. But yeah, there's that moment where you think all my childhood franchises are now in my hands, basically.
Yeah, that's
Um,
amazing. An amazing feeling. I can imagine.
yeah.
That's great. And about the Phantom franchise, why did you choose it, or it was the one you could get the rights to produce a game? What was the story in there?
Well, I'd been on YouTube deep diving into like what was trending in terms of games and toys and things like that. And NECA had just released a bunch of action figures for the Phantom and for Flash Gordon and Mandrake, and they were getting phenomenal reviews on YouTube. And the the overall consensus from these people were, I don't know who these characters are, but I really like the way they're designed, and I like the backstory of them. And for me, the Phantom has always been around because in Australia it was always big. It's like one of those legacy brands that everyone knows of, but it's not like Spider-Man or Batman or anything like that. It just has like a bit of an underground general consensus of awesomeness, but it's never really been, you know, aside from maybe the 96 movie where it peaked, um, it's never really been to the Marvel or DC level.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, it had potential because we could bring it into the spotlight. Um, we knew there wouldn't be a lot of other competition in terms of like AAA studios wanting to release a game because it's high risk, right? You
Sure,
don't know how
sure.
many units you're going to sell. You could sell 3,000 copies, you could sell 300,000 copies. We know the toys have sold really well, and the toys are roughly the same price as the game. So we figure if the same sort of people buy the game as they bought the figures, we should be in a relatively good position. Um, but for me personally, the Phantom was the superhero that my dad gave me all his comic books on.
Oh,
Um, and so they were always sitting in my bedroom from the age of 5 onwards. And, you know, of course, there was Star Wars and Ninja Turtles and other things that kind of got in the way. But, you know, Phantom was always the superhero in our kind of part of the world. And then when I got to high school, I saw kids carrying around Phantom trading cards, and I thought that's weird. I thought I was the only kid who liked the Phantom. Um, and you know, these were some cool kids. Um, so I got into the trading card side of things really heavily back in the, you know, we're talking 93, 94. And from there, it's always been one of those brands that I've admired, I think, more than actively wanted to participate in. Like I wasn't, as a kid, I wasn't there drawing the Phantom or anything. I was drawing Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. But I had a deep kind of personal connection with it because it was that first window into the pop culture comic book kind of world. Um, so when I saw that there was this reprisal through the action figures, I reached out to King Features and sort of put my foot forward with a fairly lengthy proposal and said, this is where I think we can take the brand. This is the art style I want to use. This is the time window we can do it in, and this is what I'm prepared to offer in terms of, um, uh, you know, retail sales, revenue splits, and things like that. Um, And so from there, it sort of just started to roll. It was a slow roll to begin with, and I was freaking out when they didn't respond to some of my emails initially. But then, it sort of came about, and I ended up flying to New York, December of last year, and signing the contract with them in person, which was quite an experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's, and of course, I hadn't at that point really dived deep into the Phantom fan base. Um, I didn't really know how much of an online presence the Phantom had. I was kind of just going off, okay, I think the Phantom's back into circulation a little bit and people are starting to get to know him, especially in America. Let's jump on this and put something together, because I think it fits our company. It's a huge brand for me as a kid growing up. I absolutely loved it. And I think we can get something made within a time frame that they're happy with. So that's how it's all sort of all come together.
Amazing. And the character, I know the Phantom. I read some comic strips back when I was a kid in the newspapers. We had one in Brazil that published every Sunday a couple of comic strips. I watched the movie from 1996, I guess, with
Mm-hmm. Billy Zane.
Billy Zane. Yeah, yeah. I want to ask you about him later. But I don't know very much about the character. I probably know as much as your regular Joe around the internet. So what can you say about him? I know he's not a super powerful hero. He has no powers. He uses his smarts against his enemies. He has a gun,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows
Mm-hmm.
how to fight. But
Yeah.
what else can you tell me?
So the character dates back in the story. He dates back to the 1500s when his father was killed by pirates. And the general gist of the Phantom is he's very much like like Batman. He's a detective and also a fighter of piracy and just general villainy. But he lives on through his legacy. So he teaches his children all of the things that he knows, and it's
Oh,
um, the legend is born through the family lineage. So from the 1500s to where the game kicks off, which is set in the 1930s, there's been 21 phantoms. Um, and they're not all exactly the same, but the general vibe, if people see the phantom, is, oh, he's still alive, he's immortal. But in fact, it's just the offspring of the previous phantom. So there's some interesting stories there because he's basically been around since the 1500s and he's seen all of the different types of wars and cultural um, uprisings and the Enlightenment and all those sorts of things. He's been around for all of that, so to speak, but it's been his children of his children of his children. Um, so it has quite a strong family bond kind of element to it. Um, it's all about legacy. It's all about continuing a high sense of moral standards from generation to generation. And of course, the Phantom having to evolve with current times as well. When we get to the 1930s, he's got to deal with the world that's changing. World War One is finished. World War Two is about to kick off, and him finding his place in that era as well. And his alter ego is Kit Walker, and his travels to different countries in disguise is all part of the story as well. So there's kind of like there's the superhero brawler kind of punching people kind of side of the Phantom, and then there is the detective sleuth. Um, and all the Phantoms have been very well educated. So basically, they go off to Harvard or they'll go off to some sort of major university. He can speak multiple languages, all that sort. He knows. He's very articulate, very scientifically minded, and
that's
they all
interesting.
vary in what sort of things over the generations they've decided to be more invested in. Like there are some generations of the Phantom that have been like very scientifically minded. There are some that have been more, let's just say, action orientated. More wanting just to kick the snot out of or punch the snot out of people. There's been swashbuckling versions of the Phantom that have fought musketeers. A version of the Phantom fought
Oh, that's
Redbeard. A version
amazing.
of the Phantom was knighted by the Knights Templar. Um, so there's all these little tie-ins that you can see throughout history with the Phantom, and I think that's one of its strong points too. Is it's kind of he's just been there for the entirety of modern history, sort of thing.
That's amazing. And he was the first modern superhero, right? I guess I read something.
Yes,
He was the first
yeah.
to
So he
use the
technically
authority.
predates Superman. Yeah, yeah. He predates Superman and Batman, obviously. Um, and I think it's interesting. Like you can probably talk for hours and hours on why he hasn't kind of made it into more of the comic zeitgeist outside of the main fan bases around the world. Um, there was a short run where DC took over and did, I think, 13 issues. So he's been published by DC. And there was, of course, the Defenders of the Earth 1980s cartoon where he was one of the characters along with Flash Gordon. So he's certainly been around. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like Marvel and DC kind of took over and had a huge significance on pop culture, and then of course the movies came in and they did really well, and they just kept rolling. And I think it's pushed a lot of these smaller superheroes
Yeah, sure.
that have been around for twice, maybe three times as long, pushed them off to the side a little bit. I think there's like the Rocketeer and the Shadow and um, all those kinds of characters that have had either one movie in the past and not much more, that are kind of seeing a bit of a revival through collectibles like action figures and uh, Funko Pops and all that sort of stuff. And it shows that people are still like really um, engaged with the character and the potential for more of that, basically.
Yeah, I guess we have to thank Marvel and DC because this explosion of superhero popularity for sure make a lot of people looking for what else. I know about Batman, Superman, Iron Man. I know about
Yeah,
Black Widow. What else? What else? I want more. And they
yeah,
end up finding Mandrake, the
yeah, Mandrake.
Phantom,
Yeah,
or even Tarzan. Who knows? Because
yeah. Well,
Tarzan,
Tarzan's had many remakes over the years.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
He's older than the Phantom, right?
Tarzan, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
A little bit old.
Um, the you could make an argument that there is superhero fatigue, uh, and certainly we're aware of that a little bit. But I would kind of also argue that the Phantom isn't really a superhero.
Sure.
He's more. I don't think I can actually define exactly what he is. Um,
Like Indiana Jones, he's not a superhero,
he's
right?
more of yeah, an
A
adventurous
vigilante.
serial vigilante kind of guy. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think that resonates with people too, who are just sick and tired of characters being overpowered and just dominating everything. There is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
serious risk of the Phantom coming into harm a lot. And we're certainly showing that risk in the games as well, in the game as well. Um, so yeah, I think the explosion superhero stuff has been really good. We're kind of trying to differentiate ourselves from that a little bit, but I think the brand just has this overall kind of stoic, old school kind of feel to it.
Yeah, in
That
there,
we're
yeah,
definitely trying to.
it's a recognizable face because,
Yeah,
as I told you, I'm not a fan of the Phantom, but as soon as I saw the images of the game and the game, whoa, the Phantom! I know this guy. I want to know more, because yeah,
yeah,
there is a superhero fatigue that's undeniable, but when you see something new and at the same time recognizable, you want to know more. Even if
yeah,
you're tired of flying superheroes and fighting in the air, that I hate, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah. Same.
And he is something more grounded, so it can really resonate to a lot of people. It's a
Yeah, and we're keeping very true to the brand in the game as well. This was not an excuse for us to take our own um take our own look at this and completely remold the Phantom into who I think the Phantom should be, or project what I think the Phantom should be to the fan base. It is really a culmination of the 80 plus years of legacy with the brand and putting that into game format, um, which I'm hoping will resonate with fans as well. You know, we're not trying to be different for the sake of being different.
yeah.
Um, the game is very grounded. It has that 90s final fight feel to it. Um, it's different to sort of the contemporary beat 'em ups, which can be a little bit more flighty. You know, like Shredder's Revenge. You can basically take out the enemies without even touching the ground. You can bounce off walls, bounce off the top of um, foot soldiers' heads constantly. I mean, ours is definitely more in line with your Streets of Rage and your Final Fight era of gaming. Um, so yeah, we're trying to keep real to the brand and real to the genre of gaming as well. So there's no surprises in it. You can pick up the game, play it for 20 minutes, have a good time with it, put it down, or you can play it right through for a couple of hours and get a good kick out of it. There's plenty of story in it as well. So yeah, it's definitely brand loyal, and we consider everything we're doing, you know, 3 or 4 times over
Oh,
before
that's
we
great.
make big decisions for the game as well. So it's, you know, um, the feedback so far from the Phantom fan base globally has been 99% positive, which is for the internet really quite unheard of. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I'm really happy with that.
Oh, that's great. And do you think he is he's a appropriated hero to be in your own in his own beaten up? He's a good fit. Do you think his personality? Because as we were talking a little bit ago, he is a guy who uses his brain a lot, and beaten
Mm.
ups are not famous for his its brain part of the gameplay. Do you think he
Yeah, so
used
that's a
this?
catch. That's an interesting question. I think so. Yeah, we could have easily um, gone down the route of a more detective style game. But I think what took us over the edge to use more of the Phantom's physical attributes rather than his mental attributes were we wrote the story based around the physicality of the game. So there is a reason in the story for the Phantom to be acting the way he's acting. Without that, I could totally see a good case being put forward that we're not identifying with the full grasp of who the Phantom is. Like we're just singling out his action capabilities and going forward. But when you play the game and you're going from the start to the end, it doesn't feel like that because the deficits in the Phantom's detective style attitude are embedded in the story. Um, and so you don't feel like it's a lesser character or that we're just trying to ram the character into a beat 'em up engine. Um, we've definitely got more story in there than any beat 'em up that I've seen, either from the 90s or from modern era. Um, so, you know, we're talking about 15 levels with cutscenes in between each level.
Nice.
It's a comic book essentially. We've essentially written a comic book and then we've translated it to the game. Um, so it will feel like you are getting a full sense of the Phantom and Diana, his wife, as well. Um, yeah, and I also took some reference from the Batman animated series
Oh,
games, which were released on the Wii, I think, is the primary. So even though the Batman animated series was very detective-like, you know, had still had action and stuff like that, but there was a good element of the Phantom solving crimes. None of that really translated to the games. And so it was always on the top of my mind that if you want the fan base to feel like the Phantom is the actual Phantom and not just a bunch of sprites beating up other sprites, you would have to have that connection in the game itself. And There's a little bit of bias in there too because I just love beat 'em ups. Um, and that's the way I'd pitched it to King Features from the very beginning. You know, it was never going to be any other type of game. I was never going to compromise on the mechanic. Um, so it's all about fitting in the story to the mechanic to make it feel like a more well-rounded experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure, sure. And talking about, since you said you love beaten ups, favorites? What are your favorite
I
beaten ups?
started with Kung Fu Master on the NES. Then I had my dad bought me an Atari 2600 and Kung Fu Master on that, and it was abysmal. Um,
Yeah, I know the
then
game.
my first experience, yeah, my first experience of a beat 'em up that I loved, or just in general, outside of the Atari or the NES, was Bad Dudes versus um, is it Bad Dudes versus Ninjas?
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's the
Uh,
name. I always call the game Bad Dudes, but there's a
just
versus in
straight
there.
Bad Dudes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was at our local fish and chip shop where in our town that we lived in. So that was always accessible and it was 20 cents for a life, which got you absolutely nowhere. Um, and I remember being absolutely terrible at it. But the first beat 'em up, I think, where I thought, holy crap, this is awesome and I want to make these one day was TMNT, the very first arcade game, the Konami Classic.
That was great.
We had one copy of it at a video store in the mall, um, and it was always taken by a bunch of kids much older than me. So the very first experience I have with that game is just watching over the shoulders of these bigger kids, like trying to squeeze my way in between four of these teenagers playing the game, and I was much younger, like 9 or 10 years old, and seeing that game and how seemingly close it was to the TV show at the time. Um, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And from there, everything followed. Final Fight, Streets of Rage. You know, any we weren't lucky enough to get Neo Geo except for at the arcade, or anything, you know, sort of smaller scale. And so I was in my 20s and I could go and play a whole bunch of different games. I went to Japan and kind of lost myself over there.
Oh,
Um, but all the main classics we got to play, like even games like Contra and the sequel to it, which in Australia was called Super Alien Probotech on the Super Nintendo. These run and gun games were awesome as well. And then of course Sunset Riders,
oh, that was great.
and even the Asterix and Obelix games on the Super Nintendo, that those side scroller beat 'em ups. Um, yeah, I think I've played everything, but I think the one that sticks in my mind, which I would probably go to, would either be the arcade TMNT or arcade Turtles in Time.
But let's go back to the Phantom. What are you planning in terms of time frame, characters that will appear, the villains? What are you planning for the game?
So, okay, time frame in terms of how long you would play the game for?
No, no.
Like, what's the length of the game?
Which version of the Phantom is the latest version of the Phantom? It will be in the past.
Yeah, so we're playing the players will be in charge of the 21st Phantom, which is the current Phantom in the comic series, and the second player will be his wife Diana. I can't give you I'm not going to give any of the story away at this point,
Oh,
but
sure, sure.
there are throughout the levels. There's 15 levels, and the 15 levels are divided into five parts of the globe. So basically, like very much like Indiana Jones, you're going to be traveling to different parts of the world in search of something, let's just say. And in each one of those regions, you're going to be hit with a unique boss and a unique um, assassin local to the region that's been hired by a higher power.
Oh, amazing.
So you've got a total of about 9 or 10 enemies that you'll be coming up against, and then four bosses. And then we have one mini game, which is one of the bosses where we're pulling out of the main game and putting into its own section that you can just play if you don't want to play the main storyline, which will be set in Australia. And it's basically what would you call it? A last man standing.
Oh,
So
a survival mode.
survival mode. Yeah. All the enemies come in, all the regions, and just got to last as long as you can last. And it's set in an old school boxing ring.
Oh, nice. Survival mode is always fun.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, 15 levels divided into 5 sections, 3 levels per section. We've got a mix of straight beat 'em up and also what I would call a unique kind of take on Sunset Riders, where the Phantom and Diana are in some sort of vehicle, and they're in pursuit of a boss. So it's a mix-up basically. We're dividing, and there's 3 of those out of the 15 levels. So there's a little bit of variance in there, and plus the survival mode as well thrown in. So quite a lot going on considering everything is hand drawn. So 9 or 10 enemies, 4 bosses. You can ride Hero the horse. There's going to be a whole bunch of, you can call upon Devil, the Phantom's
Oh, nice. The dog.
wolf.
Oh, wolf. It's a
Yeah,
wolf.
so
Sorry.
yeah, so
Sorry,
you can
fans.
call on you can call on Devil to attack various enemies. So there's some nice little things in there that will differentiate it, make it its own, you know?
Oh, great. About the combat, you said you're looking for something more old school. But we will have a combo counter,
Yeah.
a little juggle, maybe. Because there's one thing that I was thinking about when preparing for this interview. It's because you have 2 different publics. You have the Phantom fans and you have the beaten up fans. I
Hmm.
watched the interview that you gave for, oh my god, for Chronic Chamber.
Chronicle Chamber? Yeah.
Yes, yes, I watched the great interview, by the way. But those guys were
Mhm.
Phantom fans. They weren't
Yeah.
gamers.
Yeah.
One of them didn't even know which PlayStation we are currently at. He commented about a PlayStation 6 or 7, something like that. So you
Yeah.
have the Phantom fans that I'm pretty sure they will consume any media that you put out about the Phantom, because since 1996, that was the last time that he was in another media that's not comic strips, right?
Hmm.
So the fans are clearly eager. And you have the beaten up fans that even if they don't know the Phantom, if your game looks good, if your game played good, they will buy it. And there's let's say a conundrum for you, because the Phantom crowd that isn't gamer must pick up the game and play and not feel frustrated by
Hmm.
it, right? But your
Yeah.
typical beaten up player, me, by the way, we want to jump into the game and have a more complex gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, not only just was in the really in the past where there are 3 jabs and the guy fall and they stand up and 3 jabs again, right? We are. I have a bunch of questions I made. You saw the post I made about your game. I got a bunch of questions from your future fans about exactly about the combat, because they are looking for something that you can juggle the enemy a little bit. You can have a
Hmm.
combo counter to show. Can we expect something like this? Like this?
You can expect it, and I think you will be happy with what we've done. So look, I can't. I can tell you, and I can't tell you how many moves the Phantom has got. But let me just say this: if you look at Final Fight and you divide up the amount of sprites sequences, so what's I would class a sprite sequence of one of the characters doing a straight punch is one sequence,
Sure.
and then the second punch is another sequence, and then the uppercut is a third sequence. So the sprite set for a 90s beat 'em up was around about 15 to 20 No, that's being generous. Roughly 10 to 15 different sprites, including walking and jumping and being knocked down and getting up
Yeah.
again. Like those basic ones just take up 10 by themselves. And then the attacks are really only, I don't know, another 4 or 5 sprites put on top of that. And the same with the Punisher arcade game, which we didn't mention before, which is another arcade game I love. Um, the Phantom has 36.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
So we've got everything from uh, being able to be punching forward, then doing a back punch. We've got throwing. We've got sweeping. We've got multiple combination attacks.
Oh,
It's all in there. And considering all of those are hand-drawn frames, there's roughly 200 individual hand-drawn frames that just make up the Phantom.
holy brawlers.
So
That's a lot.
it's where we sit somewhere between the original Final Fight and the current Streets of Rage. And I think if those are the two ends of the spectrum, we're somewhere around about here. We obviously don't have
Nice,
the
nice.
budget and we don't have Sega behind us funneling
Sure,
money into our
sure,
bank
sure.
accounts. But we're tailoring it so yes, you can run through this game and just use a single button and you will have a certain experience. But there will be multiple rewards for you playing this game with combos. And I forgot to also tell you that the Phantom can draw out his both his pistols
Oh,
and he
yes,
can use guns at any point.
he carries pistols all the
Um,
time.
yeah, yeah. So that was a conundrum for us too, because we didn't want people just running and gunning all the way through the game. So what we've done with that, and this has not been done in any of the current beat 'em ups that I've seen at least, is that the how you use your guns and versus how you use your fists will send you down one storyline versus another.
Oh, that's great.
So if you decide you want to go through and shoot everyone, you're going to go down a path that we all know where that leads, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
But if you decide you're going to shoot things like crates and traps and shoot to wound before you run up to them and punch them in the head, you're going to get a separate story experience.
Oh, that's amazing, man. Just like a
So
moral system, you have if
it's a
you.
moral system, yeah. We're not going to explain exactly how it works. We want people to explore it. And
Sure, sure.
obviously, once people have done it, they'll post it on social media. We hope and we get a bit of a reaction. But there's two definitive endings to the game, which will be delivered to you depending on how you've played the experience. Because
That's
that is
amazing,
exactly what
man.
would happen to the Phantom if he did that in one of the comic series. Like, if you're a reader of the Phantom and you see a comic book where he just shoots everyone, you're going to be disappointed. So we want people to feel disappointed for doing the same thing in the game. But we also don't want to
Nice.
take that away from them because he wields those pistols all the time. So in the movie, he only uses the pistols very sparingly. It's usually to get him out of a tricky situation. Um, so we wanted to bring that same sense of morality into the game, and King Features were very excited about that component too. So yeah, that's unique to this type of game. You know, Asterix and Obelix slap them all. Love the artwork style in that, but the story is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Streets of Rage has your classic dystopia. Got to defeat the big boss because they're ruling that particular part of the city, and it's they want to make a safer, better place. You know, there's a little bit more depth in our story than that, and I'm
Nice.
hoping that traditional fans will be excited by it, and your beat 'em ups supporters and lovers of that genre will be able to appreciate that we're trying to up the ante within our budget range as
Oh,
much as
sure,
possible.
sure. Talking about beaten ups and story, do you know Mayhem Brawler?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a beaten up with a lot of story and is presented in a sort of comic book panel too. It's a pretty good game.
Yes,
Pretty good game.
I haven't played it. I've only watched YouTube playthroughs because I just haven't had any time really.
Yeah.
So I usually set while I'm working, I've got 3 screens here, so I'll be working on one. Mail and communication will be on the center, and then some sort of beat 'em up game will be playing on a YouTube playthrough here, so I can be kind of involved as much as I possibly can. Um, but yeah, it will be similar to that, I guess, a bit more comic book styled with the storyline and everything like that.
Nice.
But yeah,
And another thing that I personally, if you watch my reviews, you will see that I always have a small space for graphics, huge space for gameplay and combat, and another huge space for soundtrack. Soundtrack is
mm.
extremely important for me in beat'em ups and for most people that I talk to. What are you guys planning for that?
Well, we have our sound engineer Clark, who's been working with us on every Nickelodeon title since we started the company. Uh, he's going to be producing the audio, the music for the game. So at this stage, it looks like we're going to be offering the soundtrack with the game as part of the collector's box.
Oh, nice.
So there's a lot of thought and a lot of effort that's going into the soundtrack. Each area of the Phantom's travels will have a unique sound to it, but also culminating in a general theme that is consistent throughout all the levels. So there might be some, just say for example, the Phantom goes to India. There'll be some sitar and
Oh, nice.
some normal, not normal, some culturally significant tones to it. But we want players to feel like they're not being thrown around audibly. There'll be consistent sort of theme to it all, but just with variations, if that makes sense. So each region's going to have its own separate tracks, is what I'm trying to say. We're not shoehorning in any stock stuff. It's all custom made.
Oh, great, great.
We've got an incredible cast of voices where at some stage we're going to try and reach out to Billy Zane once we've got a trailer ready and some in-game footage and just say, hey, you want to be involved in this? See
That would
how
be
far we get
awesome.
with that.
That would be awesome.
Um,
A lot of
yeah,
people asked, talking about Billy Zane, what is your opinion about him as the Phantom?
I loved it. I'm a big fan. I was 16 when the movie came out, and I think I was probably just about the right age to appreciate it more than most other people. Um, but his passion, his enthusiasm for the character was, I thought, showed on screen. And considering it was only like a $40 million budget, which is
It's nothing.
85 million dollars now. So, I mean, that's half of what Marvel movies are generally putting out. And let's face it, most of those are, maybe except for Guardians of the Galaxy, have had mediocre kind of responses lately.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it was definitely a movie of its time, but I think he put in 110% and it shows. I mean, he's physically built for it. I mean, he trained really hard. There's rumors of him not taking off the suit during the lunch break and going and getting sushi and things from the local store and, wearing the suit.
Can you
Um,
imagine?
yeah. And I think most importantly, Lee Falk came to the set and absolutely loved it. And I think almost it doesn't really matter what the fans think. If the original creator is engrossed and loves what you're doing, that to me rises above the armchair
Oh, sure,
reviewers of
sure,
YouTube.
sure, sure.
You
What do
know?
they know if the man himself
Well, yeah, and I
approves?
mean everyone's entitled to their opinion. I
No,
totally
sure,
get that, and
sure, sure.
there's some people out there who won't like it, and I think it comes down to the age when you saw it and what your expectations were, and all that sort of stuff. And my expectations are still pretty high because I was deep into the comics and all that sort of stuff at the time, and the trading cards. But I think it holds up for what it is, and it sits up there nicely um, with the sort of movies of that era. I would argue that The Rocketeer is slightly better. Um, but the practical effects and everything like that, it felt real, it felt grounded too, which is what I liked.
Oh, that's nice.
Some of the humor is hit and miss. I mean, but
Yeah, it's from
I, do- I
1996.
yeah, I don't really think the Phantom is that funny or tries to be that funny. I think his jokes are more well crafted. I think he's the type of character who really thinks about his humor before he says anything. Um, But yeah, it landed pretty well for me. I think it gets a lot of flack, but I think once you put it in context, I think it's a perfectly nice movie.
No, I
And my
guess.
3-year-old son loves it, so there you go.
And he has the last word. If he loves
Oh
it,
yeah,
it's
he
a,
loves it, and that's
it's
all
a
that
great
matters.
move. That's all.
That's
Uh,
it.
Another thing that I had a bunch of questions in my feed. It's about what we have available for the game now. Those images, are those real gameplay? Are those
Hmm.
mock-ups? Are real gameplay? Those images? Oh, really?
Yep, yep. There's nothing in that's been mocked.
I I
Yeah,
I'm impressed, man, because that look amazing, amazing, amazing. Your
yeah.
game is looking
There's
amazing.
if anything, we haven't done a light pass on it yet because we're using a 3D engine with 2D sprites.
Oh,
So we still need to go through the lighting pass because the lighting at the moment is only coming from what's baked in. We're not using any 3D lighting or anything at the moment. We're going to put a little bit of 3D lighting in just so when the Phantom walks past like a fire burning, for example, the flickering of those flames will reflect on his belt and anywhere that's shiny on his body, there'll be a little bit of a flicker. Um,
amazing.
that pass hasn't been done yet, so yeah, the screens you see are exactly what's in the game. We're not trying to hide anything or polish anything up.
I mean, because
Um,
I will tell you, and I guess we will take that as a compliment. I got a lot of artists on my feed saying that was impossible to do in a game. It will won't look like that. That's a mock-up of this Photoshop work, and you're telling me that for
I mean,
real.
it's hard to, yeah, like it's hard for me to kind of fathom. If anything, I would have thought people would be saying it doesn't look good enough, it doesn't look polished enough.
Are you crazy, man?
Um,
That
yeah,
looks
because
fantastic.
the thing with screens is, you know, it's a bunch of 2D sprites, so it's actually very lo-fi when we're making it. Like we're optimizing it for the Switch as we build it. Whereas games like Streets of Rage and all that sort of stuff have been ported to Switch once the higher end version has been done. So to me, it almost felt like it was a little bit lo-fi compared to like Streets of Rage or something like that. So I'm really impressed that people
Man, the response
are
was
liking it.
the response was something amazing. Something people are really think that those images are fake, which is the
Yeah.
best type of compliment you can get.
Well, I'm trying to think what would give it away that it's a fake. But anyway, I mean that's great. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll be sharing more screens over the next couple of
please,
weeks,
please, please, please. That
um,
man, I'm really
particularly around the
impressed.
Phantom shooting. So I'm happy that people are thinking it's faked. That's completely cool with us.
There's a texture in your work.
Yes,
That and
yes,
that's what caught my attention more than most of the games that I'm seeing now. And trust me, I see a lot of beaten ups, man. A lot of beaten
yeah.
ups. I
Did you
see.
see the video of the Skull Cave, the transition, the left to right pan of the Skull Cave, the video on social media?
No, I just saw the rough drawing you made. That's the sprite test. I even share
Yeah,
it.
okay.
The only thing I
Um,
saw moving was that, and I was impressed too. Great animation.
yeah, have a look at I just posted it up last week. Sorry, the middle of this week, I think it was. We've taken some screen capture from the Skull Cave, which is from the PC version, not from the Switch version. Um, and that will have all of the Skull Cave lit up with all of the fires burning and things like that. And we've just taken a pan from left to right to show the parallaxing and everything. Because that's the other thing, like
Oh, I
uh,
need to see that.
all the backgrounds and things, even though they're completely hand drawn, have been drawn to be parallaxed. And there's this beautiful um, depth to it that Anthony Spey, our lead artist, has given. Like even the Bengala forest jungle looks incredible, and the texture in all the different layers too. It's worth it. It's worth checking out the Skull Cave.
It's I can imagine that I can't imagine the amount of work you guys are facing with all these drawings, layers, and such.
Yeah, well, we hit the 2 month mark and we just got the Phantom done, and I thought, okay, right, we have roughly 13 months left, maybe 14 months to do the rest of the game. We've only got the Phantom done, but things kind of like really started to roll once we had the style down and we knew like where we were going with it all.
In your site, I guess there's some mention to former Marvel and DC artists. Can you disclose who they are? They are working with you.
Um,
You are consulting with them. What's going on?
yeah, so Anthony Spay, who's done everything across both Marvel and DC over the years, and
Oh,
also the
amazing!
Phantom. He's our lead artist on this. And then we're going to be bringing in other artists as the game progresses. We also have his name is Luca Urbetta, who's coming in to do the cover art for the collector's edition.
Oh, amazing!
So he's been drawing for the Phantom for ages. He's got a beautiful sort of watercolor acrylic kind of look to his stuff. So the the standard box art will be pretty much what you've seen so far on social media and the Phantom website, modern kind of looking comic style, but we're going with a more of an old school look for the collector's edition.
Nice. That's nice. You're planning huge things. The game will be released for all consoles and PC. You
Mm,
have standard editions, collector editions.
mm.
How are you handling all of these? You have
I don't sleep and
partnerships.
my life is falling apart.
What? Their lives. For a
Um,
moment, I what?
well, there's no such thing as stability when you make video games in your work and in your home life. I think it's always it's a fine balance to try and meet some sort of stability when you leave your desk.
Yeah.
You try not to take too much of it with you. Um, but it's a big task. There may be we may have a delay on the Xbox purely because sales for hard copy of the Xbox have been down, and we might have to wait till pre-orders are in to see how many people want an Xbox copy. Um, it's all relatively new for us, so we're not saying there's it's everything's going to go to plan and everything will be released exactly when we say. Could be a delay here and there, but like I said, we're optimizing it for the Switch and for the PlayStation as we build it. So it's sort of going against the traditional method of building it for one platform only and then paying another studio to port it. We're kind of building it as we go for multiple platforms, which hopefully will save us some time, and hopefully give the QA team a bit more of a break.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, we can only plan these things, and we've got a fairly structured plan in place. Obviously, everyone's happy with how the game is progressing. We're happy with it. We've got our deadlines and our milestones. And as long as we keep hitting those, I think we're going to be in a good position. We are going to be doing a Kickstarter towards the end of August, which will be to raise money for the collector's edition. And how much money we raise will depend on what goes into the final collector's edition. But we want to do at least a vinyl figure of some kind.
Oh,
We
nice.
want to do a individual signed and numbered print from the game by Anthony. Um, we want to have a whole bunch of cool stuff in there that you wouldn't probably normally get in some of the other collector's editions. So yeah, that's going to come up as well. So that will ease our budget side of things, trying to cover both the original version of the game and then the collector's edition. We're hoping that the fans will chip in, and we're going to do some cool stuff in there too. Like we're offering a certain number of um, opportunities for backers to
Nice.
have themselves put into the game.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
we've got a bunch of background character positions available. So people who want to invest in having their character immortalized in a console game for the Phantom, that's an opportunity.
Man,
We're also
you
going to.
get a bunch of Phantom fans
Oh
begging to
yeah,
be in the
yeah.
game.
We all want to be in there too. So it's
Oh,
like the
sure, sure.
leftovers
I want to be in there
from
too.
this. We've got the team, and then we're offering some spots to the King Features guys, and but
Sure.
there's so many levels, so we can put a few people here and there, and you'll get back your own signed illustration from Anthony, the version
Oh,
that the
amazing.
clean version. So there's a bunch of stuff we're doing for the fans. We're really trying to make it feel like this is not just a company wanting to do a cash grab. Um, it's not. We're a small team. We're backing this ourselves. The whole game's being funded by ourselves. Um, yeah, so we need to make it to work. We need to make it work for so many different people. So it's just a matter of finding that nice balance, like you said earlier, between the hardcore fans and the hardcore beat 'em up guys, and just a general audience too. Like I would
Sure,
love
sure.
for a 16-year-old who has bought the NECA toys to go, oh, the Phantom, that's cool. I'm gonna buy this and play this. Like, it'd be nice for the game to have some resonance with non-Phantom people and non-beat 'em up people as well. You know?
Yeah, that's a market that you have that is open for that has a lot of potential because, as we said, that you have
Yeah.
the whole Phantom fan base, and
Mm.
you're hitting the market with this game in a excellent moment. We are in a revival of the beaten up genre.
Yeah.
Last year, you won't believe, but last year we had 29 beaten ups.
Oof.
29 beaten
Wow.
ups. And this
I think I
year,
played about 5 of them.
I had to play them all. And this
Wow.
year we are having some huge names coming too, and for next year too. Now with the Phantom among them, it's a great time to release a big name, beaten up with a big name like the Phantom. It's your guys are in the right place at the right time.
It appears to be, and it wasn't really that well planned out. I obviously had my finger on the pulse to a certain extent, but I wasn't like thinking, oh, this is the time I've got to jump on it. It was more or less testing the water and just seeing if we could get something across the line, and it kind of worked. And then I said to my lead developer, can you believe we're actually doing this? And it's just like a moment of disbelief, really. I took the contract out of the building um, on 59th Street in Manhattan on the west side and sat down in a little restaurant, bought myself a relatively expensive meal, considering I was on a budget. And I just sat there and went, oh my God, like this is incredible. I didn't think I'd be in this position. Be our publishing it as well, and not just being a studio for hire with someone above us barking orders at us. To have some control over it and to talk with the brand owners and with the fan base and with artists and also being inducted into the comic book world, which, I'd been part of the kids entertainment industry for a very long time, but the comic book world is its very own distinct entity. Um, and there's lots to learn, and the people have been really supportive, and there's just so many things happening now. It just feels like it's a revitalization of our studio for one thing, because we closed one chapter with all the Nickelodeon, Viacom, Sony stuff, and this is sort of the ushering in of the new side of our business as well. So there's just so much going on, and I think that the reception has been very good so far. So I'm hoping we can keep that momentum, keep
Yeah,
those expectations in check, and deliver what we can deliver, and hopefully it'll resonate.
I reached with my post about the game around 60,000 people, 6,000 people. It was I don't remember any negative commentary except for the skeptics that were saying that your game that wasn't gameplay, that was a Photoshop, but there wasn't a single negative comment about your game. Everybody that I spoke to, that I read comments, was very hyped with idea. You can be the guy responsible for the Phantom Rebirth. You know that.
Oh, mate. Again, your flattering words will get you absolutely everywhere. Um, Look, it would be nice to kick off a revitalization of the brand. Um, you could argue that the 1995 Super Nintendo game that came out was because it was based on the 2040 version of the Phantom, which is the futuristic version, and Viacom was behind it. It sort of felt a little it sort of just missed the core fundamentals of who the Phantom is. So I think this is the true arc. This is the true video game. Like, I don't like to bag out the Super Nintendo era. I think it's beautiful,
Oh
but
yeah, sure.
this is definitely the Phantom. Like I can't stress enough how much time we've put into making sure people feel like this is the actual Phantom. You know what I mean? Like we're not distracting, we're not overcompensating. It's we're trying to be true to the character.
It's the game the character deserves. You would
I
say
think
that.
so, yeah. Look, I mean, Ubisoft or Activision could have picked it up and put several $1 million into it, but I would argue it would still probably lack the heart that we're trying to put into it. So,
I
um,
imagine.
yeah.
And about the Phantom universe, do you have the license only for the Phantom, or you got the license for other characters like the Shadow,
We only
Mandrake?
have the Phantom. We
Oh,
only have the Phantom, but I will say this, permission has been given to us to include cameos of other characters in the game.
oh, that's great. That's great. They won't be
So I'm not going to
playable,
tell you
but they will
where.
be
They will be in there. They won't be playable.
nice, nice.
But it's our hope long term, if this game sells well and reviews well, that I would like to do a Defenders of the Universe sequel to this game, which would be Phantom, Mandrake, and Flash Gordon for sure.
You know,
Um,
there's a console beaten up for about the Shadow for the Super Nintendo. Did you know that?
I've I've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good game. But no,
No,
it's
no.
broken because it's unfinished. I can now we can say that. But another a true beaten up for for the Shadow would be nice, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. I'd even love to do another Rocketeer game, and the Rocketeer was a game that came out on the Super Nintendo, and it was whack. It was just bizarre.
Just terrible, man. I rent that game. Got stuck on the first level, that plane race. That was
Yes, terrible
terrible,
idea.
man. Terrible
Terrible.
game.
You could tell they put a lot of effort into that specific level too, because they'd done all the digitized sprites. You can tell the care was put in from a visual perspective, but it just made no sense mechanically.
Yeah, it was weird because
And
you had the big screen with the planes in 2D, which was
yeah,
terrible to control, and you have a small screen in first person.
yeah, totally bizarre and totally unnecessary and missed the point completely. But that was the randomness of the 80s and 90s, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Hit and
they
miss.
hit anything in the wall, see what sticks, and we go with
Yeah.
it. And do you have an idea about pricing for the game? Can you speculate on that or disclose that?
Yeah. So I mean, well, if the game's not going to be released for another year
Sure.
essentially. So what the market's going to look like in a year's time, I can't be sure. But at this stage, you're probably looking at a standard retail price for the normal box of around about 60 Australian dollars. And the digital version will be about 39 Australian dollars. And then the collector's box is really going to range. I've had Phantom fans saying their budget is 200. If I can get it within $200, it'll be fine. Um,
That's a
which
lot
to
of
me
money.
seems a bit excessive.
Yeah.
I would be hoping for somewhere around the $120 mark for the collector's edition. But again, we want to raise some money on Kickstarter, see if we can at least reach a cap on that and use that to invest in what we need to make. But that's the sort of budget range we're thinking of for the games. I mean, the retail price.
I see. And
Um,
just to be extra sure, the Kickstarter will be only for the collector edition, or
yeah, we're aiming for about the $60,000 mark to be raised for the collector's edition. It doesn't mean that if we can't raise it, the collector's edition won't go ahead. It just means the collector's edition will be significantly less awesome.
but the
Um,
game is being funded by you guys. There's
yeah,
nothing to
yeah,
do
the
with the
game's
Kickstarter.
completely fine.
Oh,
Yeah, the
nice,
game doesn't
nice.
require Kickstarter. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had some
Um,
people asking me to ask you that if the it will be a
yeah.
Kickstarter because they want to take part, and you know people are get very excited, man. Check my
Well,
profile on Twitter later
I
read the
think when you
responses.
sent me the email, I went and read some of the earlier responses. But let me just make this clear. When we started this game in January, we had no idea, and I'm talking zero idea, how the fan base would take it, how many people would be interested, how many games we can make. I mean, how many sales we can make. And if we had known there would have been the support that we've got now, we probably would have put a Kickstarter in place earlier on so that we could add to the budget that we're putting into this and maybe make the game a little bit bigger and bolder where we possibly could, wherever the Kickstarter money would help. So it's a little bit of letdown for us that we didn't kind of
Anticipated.
anticipate it as much as we did. And I think that's down to King Features not really having the data and us kind of being a little bit hesitant and maybe a little bit too humble in not going out there and going big and bold and all that sort of stuff. But I think for future games, definitely if we do a Defenders of the Earth sequel, we'll be starting the process with a Kickstarter, I think. Because you know how much these games cost to make, and
Yeah, sure.
it's not exactly a cheap world to live in at the moment. Everything's elevated in price. So
Yeah.
for us, we're using that 10 years worth of Nickelodeon backing financially I'm hoping to good use.
Yeah, sure. The future of the game, do you have plans after release, or it will be a one shot deal? You release the game and
We
that's
want to
it?
do a sorry to cut you off. We want to do
No,
an
no problem.
iOS Android release
Oh,
uh,
nice.
a few months after the main release. We're going to have a bit of a break, and then we'll probably hit the iOS Android. We don't want to put paywall crap behind it. I'm very anti paywall. So it will just be a one-off fee between $3 and $5, but it will be a cut-down version of the game. And not a significant amount of cuts, but some cuts.
Yeah, but that would be great.
Outside of that, I would love to do a DLC for the original game. I don't know what that would be yet, and again, it's going to be based on sales numbers, whether
Sure,
we'll
sure.
go ahead with that. Could be an extra playable character, could be an additional level or additional game mode. I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah, I believe if the game is successful, you will have no trouble with King's Features to get the license for a playable Mandrake or the Shadow for this game,
Oh, 100%.
right?
Yeah.
That
I'm
would,
hoping that we can get that off the ground even before it launches. If pre-sale numbers are high enough, we can start
oh
negotiations
yeah,
then.
yeah. That would be
That
great,
would be
man.
ideal.
And when can we expect trailer, gameplay? When can we see the ghosts
Hoping to have a
walking?
trailer ready just before New York Comic Con, so August, September.
Oh, very close.
And then that will include also some of the animation we've been doing for the opening animatic of the game, so you'll be able to see the style and at the level of frame by frame animation we're doing on a larger scale.
Nice.
And then we'll be launching the Kickstarter shortly after that for the collector's edition. And then there'll be another trailer released before the end of the year, which will be the final trailer. And then we'll hopefully be looking to launch the game around the end of June, early July of 2024. That's the plan.
Oh my God, feels so close, man. 1 year.
I know.
So quick. Oh
Like I
my-
said, no need to sleep.
Yeah, no, sleeps for the week. Don't worry about that. We sleep
That's
when
it.
you're dead.
I tell you what, I spent 10 years making video games before the Phantom, and my body is basically telling me that every day. So, wow.
Man, do you have anything else do you want to say to your fans, to beaten up fans, to this huge
Well, I think just
community?
in general, I'm really humbled and pleased that everyone's liking what we've shown so far. And I want to let everyone know that our ambitions are to make the best possible game we can and to really give some legacy to the character in this new genre. And that's about it, man. I'm just really, really excited about it. I'm happy the fan base is loving it. I'm happy that people who don't necessarily know the Phantom are digging it. I'm very much in tune with the online world and social media and stuff, and just seeing an overwhelming positive response to something is heartening because people, I think, exist to scrutinize things,
Yeah,
and it's good that we're flying under that radar. It's quite positive, you know.
that's great.
Um, the trailer and everything is going to give out a lot more, and I'd love to, maybe we'll do another chat sort of
Sure.
around about the time of the trailer drop, and we can talk about other bits and
Oh,
pieces.
sure.
We
I
have
would
more
love
stuff to
to.
show you.
I would love to.
And yeah, so look, like again, I'm humbled. I'm stoked. This is certainly for me a life-changing moment. Um, Learning lots just in the sense of how the comic book industry works and publishing industry, and people have been really welcoming and excited for us as well, which is good. And Limited Run have been awesome. Um, they've been on board with us from day one. They're just like, yep, we love the fandom. We're in whatever you guys. They hadn't even seen a screenshot yet. Um, so that's been really cool.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm happy, man. I'm happy, and I'm happy that people like you are taking the time out to talk to us as well.
Oh, that's a pleasure, man.
We're hoping to pick up some mainstream interviews as we go into the final stretch, but we have had another publishing a comic publishing company reach out to us and want to sign a deal with us for another game.
Oh, that's great.
So that's been really, really big for us. It means next year we can kick on with something if if we don't eventuate through King Features for a sequel to the Phantom game for Defenders of the Earth, we'll have something to move on to. So yeah, there's lots to go, and a long way to go, I should say. And yeah, pretty excited.
Oh, that's
I
great.
say that it's 1:45 a.m. on a Saturday morning, so my energy levels
Oh,
are
I can
somewhat
imagine,
down.
man. You must be
But
dying to sleep. Just a couple more
no,
things. I don't need. Where can people follow you? Ash, thank you very much, man. This interview was amazing. This was
thanks, Ricardo.
very enlightening. I'm more excited for the game now than I was before. And I guess
Good to hear.
people will be too, because we talk about the combat and about the story aspects of the game. That will cover both bases that you need to please.
I hope
So,
so. I hope so.
man, it will be great. I hope we can chat again, as you said, when the trailer comes out. And please keep me in the loop. I want to know more.
100%, mate. And don't forget to grab that video out of our chat that shows off the skull
Oh,
cave.
sure, sure. I'm watching
And
as soon as
that's
we end here.
awesome. Yeah, man. Fantastic. Well, mate, it was excellent chatting to you. Let's keep up the dialogue, and
Sure thing.
I'll go and get some rest.
Oh, go for it, man.
Thanks, mate. Chat
Thank
soon.
you. See you.
Appreciate it, Ricardo. Bye bye.
All right. Bye bye.